When you finished watching Breaking Bad, were you rooting for Walter White to get away with it? When Thanos snapped his fingers, did a tiny part of you kind of understand where he was coming from? And when Hannibal Lecter was back on screen, did you feel dread, or did you feel something close to excitement? If the answer to any of these is yes, you're not broken, you're just human, because there is something hardwired into us that is magnetically, irresistibly drawn to a truly great villain. And today, we're going to figure out exactly why. Let's start with the most uncomfortable truth first. We love strong villains because on some level, we recognize them. Not their actions. Most of us are not going to cook meth or take over the world. But their motivations, those hit closer to home than we'd like to admit. Walter White doesn't want to be evil. He wants respect. He wants to feel powerful after a lifetime of feeling small. He wants to matter. We've all felt that. Magneto watched his family die in a concentration camp and decided the world would never make him a victim again. And that's not madness, that's trauma with a plan. Killmonger looked at centuries of oppression and said, "Why are we playing by rules designed to keep us down?" A lot of people watched that film and thought, he's not wrong. This is called the mirror effect. The best villains hold up a reflection of human desires, fears, and frustrations that we normally keep locked away. And there's something deeply cathartic about watching a character who refuses to keep those things locked away, even when the results are terrifying. The villains don't just show us who they are, they show us who we could become if we stop playing by the rules. And that is fascinating every single time. There's something nobody likes to say out loud. We are all constantly performing a version of ourselves that's been sanded down for social acceptability. Villains don't do that. They say exactly what they mean. They take what they want. They refuse to apologize for who they are. They exist completely unapologetically on their own terms. The Joker at his best is pure chaos. A man who has decided that all structures and rules and systems we live by are a joke. And he's the only one honest enough to say so. We don't want to be these people, but there's a dark secret thrill in watching someone live out the fantasies of total, consequence-free freedom. Now, let's talk about craft, because there's another reason we love strong villains, and this one is about storytelling at its most fundamental level. A weak villain produces a weak story, full stop. If the hero is going to win, and in most stories, they are, the victory only means something if the threat was real. If the antagonist was truly dangerous, truly intelligent, genuinely capable of winning. Think about Clarice Starling in Silence of the Lamb. She's smart, tough, trained, and yet every single scene with Hannibal Lecter, she feels like she is walking a tightrope over an abyss. Because Lecter is her intellectual equal, and possibly her superior. Every conversation is a game of chess, where she can't quite see all the pieces. The tension is unbearable. Or take Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men. He is so methodical, so relentless, so utterly without mercy, that the entire film feels like a storm front moving across the scene. You cannot relax, you cannot look away. The villain's power is what gives the hero's journey its stakes. And without stakes, you don't have drama. You have events happening to people. Strong villains are what transform a plot into a story. Here's where it gets really interesting. Great villains are often the most honest characters in the room. Heroes tend to operate within a comfortable moral framework. They fight for justice, for love, for the greater good. All values we've agreed are correct and noble. They rarely challenge the system they exist within. Villains cut through all of that. The Joker's famous speech in The Dark Knight, where he talks about how nobody panics when things go according to plan, even when the plan is horrifying, is disturbingly precise because it's not entirely wrong. The rules we live by are often arbitrary. Society does only hold together because we all agree to pretend it does. Thanos looks at a universe of finite resources and infinite population growth and says,
"The hardest choices require the strongest wills."
His solution is monstrous, but his diagnosis, a lot of environmentalists would at least hear him out. Hans Lander in Inglourious Basterds is charming, multilingual, and utterly without ideology, which makes him the most chilling Nazi ever put on screen. Because he exposes the uncomfortable truth that many historical atrocities were carried out not by true believers, but by ambitious opportunists who simply found evil convenient. When a villain articulates something true, even in service of something terrible, we can't dismiss them. We have to engage with them, and that engagement is what makes them stick with us long after the credits roll. There's something else that separates a great villain from a forgettable one, and it's this: they believe in what they're doing. Random cruelty is boring. Sadism for its own sake is hollow. What makes a villain genuinely compelling is conviction, a coherent worldview, however twisted, that they pursue with complete commitment. Cersei Lannister genuinely believes the world is brutal and merciless, that power is the only real currency, and that she must do whatever it takes to protect her family in a world that has always underestimated her. You disagree with almost every choice she makes, but you never doubt for a second that she believes in those choices completely. And then there's Roy Batty, the replicant villain of Blade Runner, who, in his final moments, delivers one of cinema's most beautiful speeches. A being who is built to be discarded, raging against his own mortality. Is he even a villain by the end, or just a person who wanted to live? The best villains make us ask that question, and we love them for making us uncertain. So why do we love strong villains? Because they show us ourselves, the parts we keep hidden, because they live with a freedom we secretly envy, because they give heroes something worth fighting against, because they tell uncomfortable truths with uncomfortable conviction, and because great storytelling needs great darkness, and they provide it. The best villains aren't just characters, they're questions about power, about human nature, about what we do if the rules didn't apply, and we keep coming back to them because we haven't finished answering those questions yet, and maybe we never will.